My goodness. Compensation, restructuring, not salary increase. Even though from the PM got from 9.1 million in 2021 to 22.3 million in 2022. Then it went up to 25.3 million in 2023 and is scheduled to go up even higher to 28.5 million in 2024. You can see the increases there is massive. Over that period is 211.7 increase if you're going to look at it from 2021 salary to 2024 as scheduled, which is amazing. Even if you take the first initial tranche of his restructuring, even if you take the first tranche between 2021 and 2022, that's 143.5% increase as a big jump straight away. The 9.1 million jumping to 22.3 million, that's 143.5% increase. That's a big, massive increase. I know the rest of them, okay, he did it in tranches of 13.1% to make it look slick. But really and truly, this is some massive increases. Restructuring of salaries. But I'm going to get into each of these as we go along. But we're just going to go through the placards first and just hear what he has to say.
Well, I can do it in a minute. All right, 1 minute. So here we have the salary adjustments for in the teaching profession for principals of the largest secondary schools. They were paid at 2.9 million to 3.4 million. As of April 1st, 2023, they're at 8.5 to 10.9. For principals of the smallest secondary schools, 2.2 to 2.6 to 5.6 to 7.2. For principals of the largest primary schools, from 2.4, let's just look at the starting, 2.4 to 7. For principals of the smallest primary schools, from 1.7 to 5.6. The adjustments in salaries for parliamentarians and ministers occurs in the context of adjustments to salaries for the leadership levels across the public sector. In the nursing profession, I'm having the two top levels. The same if you were to go with the top 3 or top 4 out of 8. The persons were at 3.5 to 4.2 million, and now at 9.2 to 10 million. The level 7 from 3 to 3.6, now at 8.2 to 9.58. The persons were at 3.5 to 4.2 million, and now at 9.2 to 10 million. The level 7 from 3 to 3.6, now at 8.2 to 9.5. One more. Medical doctor.
Oh my goodness. Now, you guys knew this video was coming. Come on. I sat back, I watched everybody else put their video up, got their shot off. I decided I was going to wait, did a bit more observation and a bit more analytical research before I put my video out. So this is it. It's going to be as succinct as possible. First off, Nigel Clarke, Finance Minister of Jamaica. I'm not sure what you were trying to achieve with all those placards, as if you were in a conference meeting or a sales meeting, but the public is not that stupid. You can't pull the wool over their eyes. For you to try and compare leadership levels within, or management levels really, which is what it is, you're trying to compare their salaries to that of politicians in terms of this compensation restructuring that you guys have named it or coined it. I'm not going to use the word compensation restructuring because that's nonsense. It's really a salary increase. We're going to call it what it is. For the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, we're going to use him since he's the Prime Minister. He's the head of the helm in terms of the day-to-day administration of the country. So we're going to use him. So for a start, we all know that back in 2021, he was on 9.1 million. Now, in 2022, he had a huge pay increase, 143.5%, that went up to 22.3 million. Then in 2023, it jumped up again by 13.1% to 25.3 million. It's also scheduled to go up again by another 13.1% in 2024 to 28.5 million. Now, if you look at the period across 2021 at 9.1 million, and if you stretch it all the way to 2024, which is scheduled to be 28.5 million, that's 211.7% increase, bro. That is crazy. Now, I don't know. I can see now why they don't want to say salary increase. They want to say compensation restructuring. But at the end of the day, that's not going to wash. And for them to say things like, it's evidence based, we're going to look into that, why they said that. And basically, attract and retain, sort of young people, qualified people in the industry, suggests to me that they were underperforming. That's what I get from it. And then, obviously, the fact that he used the term leadership based, that's just a tactics that politicians use in this case to exculpate themselves from the situation. Because if you equally compare salaries of teachers and nurses and other people on the normal level, then you're going to find a huge disparity between the two, and they don't want that to be evident, because then they'll be hanging themselves. So this is why they've chose this way to do it. So this is why I say, guys, you have to watch politicians like a hawk. So let's just jump into this, okay? And we're going to start with this so-called evidence-based, market-led terminology that he used. So here we are on GDP chart. I'm not sure if this is the information that Nigel Clarke was referring to when he says evidence-based and market-led. Now, do bear with me. I'm only going by the information that's available. There's no information available for 2022 and 2023. It stops at 2020, even though you can tell up here, I'll put it in for 2023. But for some reason, it only stops at 2020. So it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that. But again, I just want to point out, you can go back the last 30 years, the last 20 years, the last 10 years, and even the last 5 years. So I'm going to focus on the last 5 years. So as you can see, 2017, 2018, 2019, they did pretty well. Then in 2020, well, I wouldn't say pretty well, but they did all right. But in 2020, there was a negative 10% growth. So that was bad. And as you can see, per capita was $4,897. That's US dollars, by the way. GDP was at 13.8%. Then in 2021, growth picked up to 4.6%. This is probably what he's looking at. I'm assuming, even though I don't like to assume, that for 2022 and 2023, this is about the same, or it's increased a little bit more. And maybe that's what he's looking at, Nigel Clarke, and saying, evidence-based and market-led. So with that said, let me just now jump into the inflation and economic growth to see what those figures look like. So here we are on the inflation chart. Again, it's doing it all. So I want to go back to, say, the last 5 years. So the last 5 years, as you can see, 2018, inflation was down. Now, a quick note to speak. This inflation chart sort of threw me off, because the bars in green, this bar chart that you're looking at, the green bar means bad and the red bar means good. But for some reason, the color coding is inversed. I don't know why, but you want inflation to be down, basically. So when here in 2018, when inflation was negative 0.64, that's good. When inflation is in 2017 was 2.3, that's bad. So you don't want inflation to go up, you want inflation to go down. But for some reason, the color coding on this bar chart is showing it the opposite. But basically, you can see here in 2020, inflation was up 1.3%. Then it sort of dropped, but still, 0.64% in terms of inflation. Now, that's the inflation rate as opposed to the annual change. So the annual change was 0.64. The inflation itself was 5.86%. So correction there if I did make a mistake. As opposed to 5.23% in 2020, the previous year. Now, as again, there's nothing for 2022 and 2023, but we're just going to work with what we have, even though you can tell that I've got 23 up there. It's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I did consult a couple of friends in my, not a couple of friends, I consulted quite a few friends in my family. 2 of them has got PhD in economics, and 1 of them has just completed his economics degree, and he's about to do his master's in economics. So I've actually spoken to all 3 of them before doing this. This is why I said to you I need to observe, wait, and give my analysis. And basically what they've explained to me is that inflation obviously want to be low. You don't want inflation to be too high. But what they're saying is when inflation is too low, that could also be a bad thing for the economy. And I say, hell, how is that? When you don't want inflation to be high, you want it to be low, don't you? What they're basically saying to me is when inflation is too low, what it means is customers tend to spend less. So in other words, they're waiting for goods to go down even cheaper. And if they're waiting for goods to go down even cheaper because inflation is very low in that economy, what tends to happen is manufacturing and production ceases or reduces as well, because from the manufacturers or production point of view, producers point of view, they're thinking, well, what's the point in producing more goods when no one is buying it? So what that then does, it creates a shortage of goods, which increases the demands of goods, which in turn increases the inflation rate to go up, because now there's a demand. And you understand me? So it's like a chicken and egg situation going on. That's the best way I can explain it to you guys. I'm no economic expert, they are, but that's the sort of the deduction I got from all of that. So that's that said. So let's just look into the economic, sort of growth. So far, the GDP looked good, 4.6%. Now we're looking at inflation. Inflation is up some, 5.86%. In terms of, the overall economy, I'm not sure if that's a nice figure to have, because as I just explained, you don't want it to be too low, you don't want it too high either. So maybe that's a sweet Goldilocks spot, if you like. I don't know. So that's another thing that I'm thinking Nigel might be looking at. But then let's just jump and look at, the economic growth situation. So here we are on economic growth. Again, I'm just going to jump, 30, 20, 10, go to 5. Again, in 2020, you can see growth rate was -10, which was very bad. But now, in 2021, you can see it's up 4.6%. Now, this seems similar to the GDP figures that I've showed you earlier, but this is actually, the economic growth figures, which is tied to the GDP, whatever. I get it. But I'm thinking he's looking at these figures and he's thinking to himself, this is the reason why it's market-based and evidence-led, where they've decided to give themselves huge pay increases because they're thinking, well, the public purse and can afford it, because the country is doing pretty all right. Now, if the country is just recovering from a previous year, but then again, this is 2021, I'm not sure what 2022 and 2023 looks like. Those latter years of 2022 and 2023, current year, might be even a better figure in terms of the economic growth. And if that's the case, I think that's what he's looking at. Now, this is the chart that he should have brought to the public, instead of those unequal comparison between leadership levels within the government to justify their pay increase. It would be better to show this and say, well, this is the reason why we as politicians in the social sector has given ourselves this pay increase, because the country and the economy is doing pretty well. We're doing such a good job, and these are the figures and bar charts to show that we're doing such a good job. And not only that, you can actually compare this to, other countries to see where you are on the poll. So let me just do that quickly for you. So if I scroll down here, you can see all the different countries in terms of economic growth, because you can see there Jamaica's economic growth historical data. Now you can look at similar country ranking, and Jamaica is here. So 14.66 billion in terms of economic growth. So, and this is based in 2021, mind you. This is not current 2023. If I go up to 2023, where is 2023 here? See, it only goes up to 2021. So if you look here, this is the latest figures they have. There's nothing here for 2022 or 2023. Now, we're still in the year 2023. So 2023 figures wouldn't have come out until maybe next year or very late, early next year. But then there's no reason why, in my opinion, 2022 figures wouldn't be here. But that's just what I'm looking at here, and I'm thinking this is what he's using to justify this sort of evidence base and and market trend or whatever. I think that's what he's looking at to justify these pay increases. Okay, so that's it for the charts. I'm just going to quickly wrap up But before I do, I just want to say, if politicians are going to award themselves huge pay hikes, they have to justify it with tangible results, not GDP, inflation or economic growth. We understand that. That's corporate talk. That's for the corporate sector. They benefit from that. The Jamaican normal man and woman in the street don't. And you can argue that, yes, it trickles down. No, it don't. It doesn't trickle down. So we know that. We know better than that. What we're going to judge you on is stuff like, the protests from teachers, nurses and firemen protest. Teachers protesting for better pay. Nurses protesting because the facilities in the hospitals is dreadful. Firemen protesting because, the equipment that they're using is rubbish and garbage, and they need family time. Then there's students, lack of jobs. Remember that viral video that's going around? All these students, clamoring on buildings looking for jobs, and very few jobs for them to be had. Then there's the bad spending with the Negril sign. Remember that? $12 million for a Negril sign. Some people were saying it's $2 million per letter. Then there's the regular shortages of water and electricity in Jamaica. That's been the case ever since I can remember until now. It's so bad that the typical house in Jamaica actually has water tanks on their roof. That's how bad it is. Then there is the turbo roads. Now, apart from the Chinese built roads, the toll roads which double tax you because you have to pay tax to drive on the road or tax the vehicle, and then you have to pay a toll to drive on those particular roads. This is another type of tax. All the other roads in Jamaica are just basically dreadful, so bad that even an off-roader can't drive on these roads. It's so bad. There's that situation. Then there's the Road Traffic Act, where they had to do a U-turn on because it was impractical to sort of enforce that, because no one in the room thought that this was not a workable law. Then there's the beaches. Most of these beaches are now sold out by private entities, and they're privatized and shut out the indigenous Jamaican people from even accessing beaches in their own country. I don't know where else in the world they do this. If you're going to have people come in and invest in your country and buy property, in many countries you can't buy property if you're a foreigner, and that's for good reason. So if you're that money hungry that you're going to sell off all the assets of the country and prime real estate to these foreign nationals, you have to have a condition that you cannot, under no circumstances, block or prevent or prohibit any Jamaican citizen from accessing these beaches. Of course, there's certain decorum when locals are mixing with foreigners and tourists, but you can't shut them out. That should be I don't know how the constitution resides on that. Then there's the currency. The currency in Jamaica is worthless. Toilet paper is so bad, and I'm not exaggerating when I say toilet paper. The currency in Jamaica is so bad, that most businesses in Jamaica prefer US currency to Jamaican currency. US currency the last time I checked, Jamaica is not a state of America. It's not part of the United States. Hawaii is, Guam is, but Jamaica isn't. So why is Jamaica preferring US currency? That's a bad reflection on the country and on the government under their watch. So there's that situation. And if you think I'm lying, someone tell me in the comments I'm lying. Then there's the cream of the crop. Crime. Jamaica is such a tiny island. The last time you ever Google search Jamaica and see what Jamaica looks like in representation on the map, tiny, you can hardly see it. You have to zoom in. Yet still Jamaica has the highest crime rate in the world, and this has been going for some 2, 3, 4 years or more. I don't know. This is Sir P's forte. This is Sir P's lane. So I'm not. He's the expert when it comes to these type of stuff. But it's the highest. It's got the highest crime rate in the world. Now all these stuff I've just listed to you: protests, students, bad spending, shortages, turbo roads, toll roads, Road Traffic Act, beaches, currency, crime. Come on, does this warrant any politician, whether either side, JLP or PNP, to give themselves this huge price hike and to hide behind inflation and GDP and market conditions and evidence-based and and economic growth? Those are corporate speak. We're not interested in that. We are interested in what translates in real terms on the ground for the normal Jamaican people, and the stuff that I've laid out doesn't warrant or justify them getting. And this is just a few of the things. The list is much longer than this, but the video is going to stop here, I'm afraid. So that's all I wanted to say about this, really. Until next time, keep it locked, stay cool.